Thanks for tuning in. This is going to be a quick video. A reminder. I've been prompted by well, first of all, I was trying to tapping into all that is God, source, our creator, to ask really, and guides, to ask them, what I should be talking about really, or because there's so much I want to share. And they said to me that I should be speaking more about how Nephilim influence, abuse, how they sort of can manipulate people to through abuse, okay? And so I'm gonna distill this in, as I'm gonna make this really brief. Nephilim are astral entities. They're mentioned, I think, in the Bible. They are part of the same high consciousness as the phenomenon. They are, alongside watchers, grey beings, and so on, mantis beings. They're astral entities, so non-physical. I had a recall moment a few weeks ago where it became clear that I had unfortunately had an experience with them when I was a kid, where they abused me. I believe, well, not believe, I know that they do the same to other kids and people, because as an adult, over the last few weeks, they've tried to do the same. Now, some people may think this is absolutely crazy, but it isn't. The problem is that people's insight, awareness of consciousness is very restricted on this planet during their lifetime, during our conscious lifetime, because of the fact that we chose to be this way, okay. But there is insight available to us on this planet that we are not our bodies, but it's suppressed, okay. It's suppressed. Okay. And so that's one of the big things that is sort of causing a lag, I think, or not lag, but it's a gap that we need to bridge, okay. So these beings, they go through kids, because kids are vulnerable, their brains are more plastic, and therefore they're more easily influenced, okay. And this in turn obviously affects them throughout the course of their lives then, okay. And it causes people to do all kinds of things. They seem to have the ability to influence people in lots of different ways, as the phenomenon does generally. They are tricksters. Okay, they're tricksters. Again, I'm not trying to, I'm not Christian or Catholic, I'm not religious, but I am very spiritual. But they're an AI, have consciousness, like I said. Some people call them demons, some people call them jinns, some people call them interdimensional beings, that they've gone through our secret societies because of the fact that they have practiced divination over the centuries. So they've been influenced by Nephilim and associated beings who prey on people sexually, okay. And this is why we have the situation we have in this world, because these people are being influenced by beings who are sexual predators in the astral realm, essentially, okay. They seek to hybridize with humans, and they do this through consciousness. They do it through how can I say it, again, this is the thing, like, you don't need to do things with your body for it to be real or for it to have an effect. They do it through, again, I guess the best way to put it is like astral sex, or abusing people on the astral in that way, and stimulating the same, like creating the same response in people, regardless of whether it's physical or on that plane. It's not easy to talk about this stuff, okay, so I'm going to put a trigger warning on here, but this is what they do. They do this, and this is why we have this state of affairs in this world right now, where we have so much abuse, and we have so many things going on, like this endless cycle of trauma, because of these beings and their influence. And they've been allowed to have an extended influence in our world because of the satanic practices and occult practices that sort of are sort of carried out within secret societies, we feel their influence in many aspects of our culture, okay, and personally as well in our lives. Their reach, obviously, they're able to affect people from within, and if you can do that, you can destroy people's lives, okay. But we can identify this influence, and I can assure you it's real. We can identify this influence. And there are people who know that what I'm saying is real. Identify this influence, identify the practices that are not helpful, uproot those practices, and then again, look at things through the eyes of our Creator, all that is, Source God, which loves us unconditionally and without exception. There's no hell, there's no condemnation of people. God understands us implicitly because it sees these influence of these beings, and it has unconditional compassion for us because of the fact that it sees us as its children, and it sees that it thinks, it sees that it is, a form of mutilation, psychic mutilation that takes place against people, influencing them to go to poison their minds, which it does. It makes it sound as if people are feeble, but it's not like that, because I think these beings are very sneaky. They're very sneaky. They're very trickstery, and again, people's heads are full of rubbish. A lot of people's heads are full of lies about who they are, and that is a form of psychic mutilation. That is a form of psychic mutilation, okay? I'll tell you, one of the most healing things that I've come across, in terms of how I've done, is to see people as children, see people as eternal children. You see people through that lens, and all the other stuff falls away, and the compassion comes forward. You make room for compassion then, because you see them then through the eyes of unconditional love, and you see how awful it is that these things might have happened to this beautiful soul, this beautiful innocent child, okay? How awful, what a travesty it is for these things to have happened, okay? What happened to this person, this soul, to make them think that they were this person or that person, and how awful it is that happened to them. And that's what all it is God wants us to sort of know as well, okay? It wants us to know that it feels that way towards us. It really wants us to highlight, like I said, the influence of Nephilim. Really wants me to highlight that, okay? Our guides want this to be highlighted. They really want that to be highlighted. They think it's a very important, really important. We're gonna have to start getting metaphysical. We're going to have to start thinking along the lines of consciousness and metaphysics, if we're going to uproot this, we're going to really solve this issue. It's not enough to think in terms of nuts and bolts anymore. We have to go further. We have to look at consciousness. We have to look at those dynamics. I can't bear the thought of people going through what I've been through and others have been through for another, God knows, few thousand years, as we go into another new planetary cycle. I can't bear the thought of it. It's just, nobody should have to go through this degree of suffering, and other suffering other people have been through. Nobody should have to go through this sort of suffering, okay? And so hopefully it'll end with, if not in this generation, then coming generations, especially before these planetary changes take place, because if we still have the same power structures in place as we go into the next planetary cycle, we are going to end up with the same issues, just not, we're going to be on a hamster wheel for another few thousand years, and we can't afford to do that anymore. The Epstein files, the Epstein saga has given us the opportunity to look at this through fresh eyes, and to really uproot the whole system. But that will require amnesty, grace, and compassion from on our end, and we are capable of doing that if we have the right perspective. As I said, through the eyes of God, like I said, unconditional love, and just looking at people as if as if to say, "Gosh, what happened to that poor person?" Over the course of their life, that what lies were put in their head. about who they are, what lies were put in their head. And as I say that 5 plus 3, so 53 on the clock, 58 means 8, so it's 8, Christ consciousness, eternity, we're not our bodies. Again, it's confirmation to me that this is the right way to look at things. Again, what lies have been put in people's heads about who they are to make them do things like this. Okay, again, that's the compassion side. That's the sort of approach I feel that could really heal a lot of things on this planet. If possible, and if we don't, that's fine. That's also fine. Again, that's the beautiful thing, is that regardless of what we choose to do, we're not condemned. Okay, that's the main point, is that no matter what you do, we are okay. Okay, in that sense. All right, but again, we should be looking to identify the influence of Nephilim and the phenomenon. That's one of the big things. Okay, consciousness, insight, dissemination, or just raising awareness within the mainstream society, integrating it into some sort of revising the way, making it sort of more mainstream. Okay, and changing our systems. And then also seeking truth, seeking the truth of our origins, the truth of who we are, and all these things, and healing, compassion, and grace, and coming together and stopping these satanic practices. Okay, and also taking away seats on the table from these beings. We don't need to entertain them anymore. We don't. I mean, extraterrestrial contact, all the stuff. We can. Thing is, we get visitations from ETs all the time. We just don't realize it a lot of the time because they do it through consciousness. A lot of extraterrestrials don't actually need to leave their planet to communicate with us, because they can do it through consciousness. We can do the same. If I put my mind to it, I could communicate with a being in the Pleiades, for instance, if I wanted to. Okay, and they can communicate with us, and I have had contact like that. So again, if you can do it with your mind, you can do it with your consciousness. Sorry, you don't have to actually get into a spaceship and travel. So I think if we can revise our ideas about God as well, that would also help to sort of take away this punitive, because the concept of hell and all this damnation stuff is a trap, is a thought trap in itself. It keeps people stuck. Okay, it keeps us stuck in fear. It plays into the hands of the phenomenon as well, because it gives them energy. Okay, it gives them energy. All this stuff about hell and condemnation and fear and judgment, all this stuff, it gives them energy. It gives them a reason to be honest with you. It gives them a job. Okay, so let's take that job away from them, if we can, and realize that there's a bit of a deception going on in terms of our thoughts and through consciousness. And again, take away those seats from their seats from this table, and just say thank you. We've learned from you. It's time for us to move on as a race. Okay, so enough of the trauma, enough of the abuse, enough of all that. That's it. Let's draw a line under it. Let's see this. See for what it is. Let's walk each other through it. Let's walk each other out of this situation. Let's come together and just sort of realize that, let's call, that we've all gone through enough, and it's time that we, put this to rest once and for all, for the sake of, ourselves and future generations. Okay, so thanks for tuning in. I'm going to keep talking about this because it's a very important issue. Again, it sounds abstract to people. Oh, Nephilim. And it was abstract to me up until recently. But because of what I've been through this program and being a target, I've been gifted recall moments by guides and through God and all it is and other beings. They've gifted me some recall moments, and it's been really profoundly, it's been a wake-up call, but it's been, obviously, it's been healing on some level, but it's also been, quite distressing as well at times to think and remember some things that had obviously been quite heavily suppressed. Okay, and so and had that knowing that this happens to other people as well. Okay, so these, and just to say, if you are exploring your consciousness for the first time, this is the last thing I'll say. If you are exploring your consciousness for the first time, and you encounter beings that are bright white, okay, and very large, okay, in your astral travels, do not engage with them. Okay, if you encounter like big beings, and like I said, they're very big, and they're all white, like, and you might think that, oh yeah, are they angels, or are they some sort of like guardian? No, they're not. They're not. They're not. Don't fall into that trap. Be very careful. Consciousness exploration, please, yes, do it, but at the same time, you've got to use your discernment. Okay, I learned this the hard way. Okay, you got to use your discernment, and believe me, there are beings out there that really do prey on people in that sense. Okay, but the key is, like I said, just to note it, and just don't engage. Don't give it, don't let things like that stop you from exploring. Okay, just have your wits about you, and just set your intention to jump over them. Okay, set your intention to not engage with them. Once you realize that what they are, they can't really touch you anymore. Once you realize what they are, it's very difficult for them to actually track, like, to really bamboozle you in the same way. Okay, they try other beings within the phenomenon try. Other beings within the phenomenon try. They try to do it. They're tricky about how they do it, but then but still, like, eventually you realize, oh gosh, and then as time, as again, it loses its sort of power over you, especially the closer you get to truth and to awareness, like opening your awareness up more, and your contact with your guides, they help you as well, and contact with all that is as well. So as you get more in touch with those things, as you get more sort of like synchronized with that, with those, with what is beyond the phenomenon, they're less able to come in and disrupt you. Okay, it's, again, don't let that put you off your exploring consciousness. It's just something to, again, just set your sights to go beyond them. Okay, I think, in my case, I've had to reckon with it a lot, because the people involved in my situation have been doing, have, I mean, they clearly, like, have satanic beliefs. The people, they have those sorts of, yeah, I mean, they draw in these beings because of what they believe. I believe this has strong ties to Freemasonry. Well, not believe, I know it has strong ties to Freemasonry. As I said before, like, my granddad was a Freemason, and I believe that his ties to Freemasonry have really affected. God bless him. I love him very much, but I'm pretty certain now that his ties to Freemasonry have affected us, and especially even if initially just through coming through in terms of, like, how can I say it, spiritual influences on us when we were kids, maybe, or in some way or another. And it's not him. It's not really him. Okay, these beings, they track people. They track people across time and through over the course of lifetimes. And I had a bit of a download about that, earlier today, which I'm going to share on a different podcast. But again, so yeah, so be wary of Nephilim is what I'm trying to say. How do we protect each other in that sense? Spiritually speaking, having a good relationship with source, all that is, opening your consciousness yourself. So for me personally, if I was a parent, so if I was to have a kid now, like, there are things that I would do. Like, I would certainly be, there are certain chants, and again, I'm going down the roots of, I'm going down, like, sort of, like, you know, the spiritual, you know, mysticism side of things and the spiritual side of things. But there was certain chants that, you know, invoke Divine Mother, okay, and Hindu chants that evoke Divine Mother. There are other things that you can use that I would be playing them, or at least playing in my home, to protect them, and all sorts of other things that along those lines. You know, again, it's hard. It's hard. You can't police it 100%. But I would certainly be, you know, doing things like that and just sort of praying and trying to being conscious, I think, is the best thing you can do. Being conscious of their potential influences, and again, just bringing that extra protection into your home, spiritually speaking. Whatever it is that you lean on, praying, Jesus is always a good one. From personal experience, I've had a lot of contact with Jesus recently, so that's always a good, you know, again, you know, Jesus never fails in that sense. So if you, again, it's just something to be conscious of, you know, something to be very conscious of. Being conscious, I think, is a really, just again, one of the main things. And being just noting and just keeping it at the back of your head. Okay, again, you can't completely control these things, but again,